Okay, so if you've been following my journey, I just posted yesterday that I was going to be posting every Friday and Saturday new videos, but I literally just paused a video by Zach Pograb. So, Zach, shout out to you. Thank you. And Zach is the obsession guy, and he's documenting every day, 365 days, as the obsession year. And that kicked me in the ass, and now I'm going to do the same. Every day I'm going to be making a video documenting my journey. And here we go. So I actually wrote a script for my next video. I'm going to be reading that and then jumping back and forth between what I wrote yesterday, what my plan was for this video, and I'm also going to just talk unscripted as I normally do. I'm trying to find a balance. And as I'm sure Zach would say, when it comes to obsession, there really is no balance. It is almost an unhealthy type of indulgence to be obsessed with something. And I've been thinking about that. What am I obsessed with? I don't know that it's a particular thing that I'm obsessed with, but more so a pursuit. I'm obsessed with the pursuit of greatness. And it's hard for other people to understand what that is if you're not on a similar path. And this kind of transitions into this video and what I was intending to talk about, which is how to make decisions, right? How do we make decisions? How do we make decisions that we can stand behind and that we feel good about making? And again, I'm going to reference kind of my script here as well, but the problem often isn't a lack of options, but an overabundance of options when we're making decisions, when we're pursuing that greatness, right? Like, which path do I take? What road will yield the best result given what my desire is? How will I know? So in this video, I'm attempting to shed light on how I have approached making decisions lately. And I'm going to draw from experience, my personal experience recently, as well as some experts that I've looked into, namely Naval Ravikant. So let's start with what's top of mind right now. And this is a decision that came up a few days ago. So I came back home to New Jersey from LA almost 2 weeks ago now, and just to spend the holidays here. And during this trip, I met up with a friend of mine who offered me a job, right? And the pay's good. It would put me in a situation where I'd be his mentee. He'd be my mentor. I'd be living at home, so I wouldn't be paying any rent or very minimal rent. And this would solve a lot of my problems, namely the financial problems of living in California, which is very expensive. And I currently, and I feel like I should use the past tense, but I have worked in a warehouse this last year moving to California. And my whole intention behind moving was to pursue greatness, right? Like, I always had this vision of moving to LA and pursuing my dream of being a filmmaker. And it's only when I got there, spent some time there, that I quickly got distracted by other things, other pursuits. I did ghostwriting for a while. I did, what else did I do? I pursued a bunch of different things. Most recently trying to get into an agency and just bouncing around. I spent 50 days, you can see the live streams on my channel, writing a script. So I did all these different things, and I've been conflicted with what to do. And so coming back here, meeting with this friend, him offering me this job, it was like being handed a gift. Like, here is a solution to all your problems. And so I was faced then with two choices: move back to California, or I rather move back here to New Jersey, or stay in California. And in many ways, these are life-altering decisions. my friend told me, he's like, just think on it. If you're not interested or you don't want to do it, like, no harm, no foul, no worries. And this became very challenging for me to address mentally. So the first thing I did was I looked up advice from entrepreneur and investor Naval Ravikant on the matter of making decisions. He's a smart guy. He has a really great podcast with Joe Rogan, which I recommend. And he uses 3 heuristics, which is just a fancy word for an approach to problem solving for making decisions. And the first is, if faced with a difficult decision such as, should I marry this person? Should I move to this city? If you cannot decide, the answer is no. The reason is because we have so many options that we are literally not biologically suited to understand how many options are available to us. Like, so all these big decisions, it's important to only say yes when you're very positively certain. So he goes on to say, if you find yourself creating a spreadsheet with pros and cons, weighing options against one another, forget it. You have to internalize it in your gut and your heart and really want something before you go for it. If you cannot decide, the answer is no. So in trying to make this decision, I found myself talking to friends and family in an effort to convince myself why I should move back here. And in some of my recent videos, I talk about the inclination of wanting to move back here. And this is something that I actually felt the last time I was here too, which was back in July. I felt like after the first week I felt like it was like I had returned to a chapter in a book that was no longer meant for me. And then by week 2, I really got comfy. And I'm like, oh, like I could see myself back here. I don't want to go back. I don't want to leave, right? And so what I did was I actually did sit down with my brother and come up with a spreadsheet of the pros and cons. And we created tables with different options, like different values, different variables, like accessibility, weather, cost of living for both New Jersey and California. And we created like this scoring rubric based on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being like awesome, 1 being this sucks. And I rated every variable that we put on the sheet. And objectively, New Jersey ranked higher based on all the inputs we put in there. But the decision-making process didn't stop there. The second heuristic from Naval is, if you have two choices and they seem relatively equal and you can't decide, take the path that is more difficult and more painful in the short term. One of these paths requires short-term pain and the other may require pain further out in the future. Your brain, through conflict avoidance, is trying to put off the short-term pain. However, if the two are even and one has short-term pain, it means that it has long-term gain, and according to compound interest, long-term gain will compound upon itself. Most of the gains in life require suffering in the short term for gain in the long term. And so, you see this actualized when you go to the gym or when you read a challenging book. In the long run, you're getting stronger and getting smarter despite the initial setback of barely being able to lift the weight or really having difficulty reading the material. Hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life. The first heuristic was about making the best long-term decision. The second was about choosing between 2 equal paths. And this third one is about cultivating peace of mind. Peace of mind, Naval says, is the precursor to happiness. And the third heuristic is to make the choice that will leave you more equanimous, which is just a fancy word for internally calm and settled in the long term. If you walk away from making a choice and still have internal turmoil, you'll want to turn around and make a different choice. In regards to this choice that I've been faced with, I had to ask, what is the hard choice in the short term but will leave me more equanimous in the long term? The easy choice would be to pack up all my stuff, sell my furniture, move back in with my parents, stack up the bread, and prepare myself for the next leg of the journey. That's what makes that's what makes the most sense. Like like I've talked to all my friends, all my family. Everyone's like, that is the smart choice to make. That is the way to go. I've been watching The Mandalorian recently with my dad and my sister, and this is the way, right? This is the way. Now, before that, seems so corny now that I'm actually reading it. But if you like what you're hearing so far, I'm not gonna read this whole fucking script about this. Just hit subscribe and like the video if you like it. Okay, cool. This is ugh. I watched a clip from Jordan Peterson the other day that really struck me, and this actually is really what helped me decide. He says, you always have to ask yourself, is this not right for me? Or am I just useless and lazy and looking for an easy way out, right? And that really struck me. You know, the past year in LA, I have gone through many uncomfortable moments, but often I've chosen the path of least resistance. It was like coming out to LA was burning the boats, but then once I got to LA, I found a new comfort in the uncomfortability of really scraping by and playing the victim. Uh, and so the question has shifted from like what's the best choice to make to which decision am I more likely to regret? And I watched this amazing TED Talk. I'm gonna put it in the description. Let me see if I can find it real quick while I'm talking to you here. How to Make Hard Choices by Ruth Chang. This is an incredible TED Talk. And she talks about how that, like, when it comes to hard decisions, there is no best decision. And I'm going to reference my notes here for a second. Hard choices are hard not because they're hard, but because there is no best option. The question is, who am I to be? Reflect on what you can put your agency behind, on what you can be for, and through hard choices become that person, right? And I get emotional like talking about this because the person that you want to be requires you to make hard choices, may require you to make hard choices. This is not to say you can't take something that's given to you, right? Like I was handed this opportunity. To take it is to be open to receiving it. There is no best option. That makes sense if finances is my priority, which in many ways it should be, right? But I think about it, what would I feel like if I decided to leave LA without giving it my all? What does that mean, give it my all, right? That means trying as hard as I can to pursue greatness, what I define as greatness. And that'll be revealed through these videos that I make. This is kind of my manifestation. This is my vessel for that pursuit, sharing these videos. I really like making these videos. And it's these questions of what decision can I make that I'm proud to stand behind? What decision can I make that I can make with conviction, honor, integrity as my backbone? And the decision I ultimately made was to stay in LA. Another year, the rest of my lease, which is December 2024, and to give myself that timeline in order to feel that I'd made my best effort to achieve my goals and make something of myself. And when I say make something of myself, it means brushing against that greatness, brushing against that pursuit, stepping into it as fully as I possibly can. When I woke up this morning, January 1st, I said, what shit should I do but I don't want to do? And that was abs. That was P90X, ab ripper X. I did it. Go to the gym. I didn't want to go. I was like, it's going to be packed. I don't want to go. And two things happened there. I showed up. It wasn't packed, but I showed up. I decided to go anyway. Even if I couldn't get a machine, I'm there. I've achieved my objective. I don't even know where I was going with this, but in a recent discussion I had with my best friend, I brought up the word commitment. And that quickly became the theme of the rest of my discussion with him. And it seems like that's the theme for this year in a lot of ways. Many times in the past, I've talked about things I've wanted, the person I've wanted to be, but I failed to take the appropriate actions to see it through. I've sat on the sidelines instead of playing the game, this game of life. And life requires taking risks, and it's those choices and those risks that determine the quality of the life, but also the experience of the life. Amid my searches for answers and clarity on this topic, I came across another resource, a Quora post titled, "How do you know if you're making the right decision?" And one of the top answers read, "You know you made the right decision when you pick the harder choice, yet your heart is at peace." Ultimately, making these choices is not easy to do. Once you commit to a choice, you close the loop. It's like if there's two paths, and sometimes there's a bunch, but if there's two paths, actually any number of paths, but you decide to pick one, you commit to that one, all those other paths vanish. It's like all these alternate timelines disappear, and you're left with the path in front of you. That then becomes your task, your dharma. That becomes your next level of work. And I read this really awesome quote that I can't pull up now because I'm recording this video, but I saw it on Instagram. It was like, don't ask advice from people who've never left home. And that's both in the literal sense and the metaphorical sense, right? I've been asking advice of people who love me and care about me. I'm grateful for that, right? But they don't have the same mindset, and they don't think in a similar way. And so you have to find the people that are as fucking crazy as you. If you're resonating with this, if you understand where I'm coming from with this, that get it. And I'm grateful for my buddy, EJ. I'm sure you're watching this, because he was able to provide me with guidance that was indifferent, essentially, a blank slate, in the sense of whatever you do, you have to commit to it. You have to decide, I'm doing this, right? And you can give yourself that timeline, whether it's a year, a couple months, to commit, right? And so when you're making these decisions, ultimately you should feel, after having made it, equanimous to some degree, peaceful to some degree. Maybe not always, but making decisions that are most aligned with the person that you want to become. And the more of those decisions you make, I imagine, the more they compound. And when you look back on the timeline, you see that, damn, I am that person now, the person I want to become. And it's a gradual process. It's one video at a time. It's 1 mile at a time. It's 1 rep at a time, 1 decision at a time. But I'm curious, what do you think? What heuristics, what mental models, what questions do you ask yourself when you're making decisions? Let me know in the comments below. And if you made it this far, you might as well like this video, subscribe to this channel, and thank you for your support, because this next year is my obsession year, and I'm going to have you there every step of the way. Appreciate you. See you in the next video.